Let me go to the telephone lines this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for our community engagement segment. And I wonder how many of you people remember the massive earthquake, Breadman. What was it? 7.0 magnitude 5 years ago that devastated our Caribbean brothers and sisters, our South Pacific brothers and sisters, our Asian brothers and sisters. And 5 years later, we're going to take a quick look back and what has been happening. We have with us this morning a doctor who have traveled to this Caribbean island many times over on missions, and he has seen it firsthand. His name is Dr. Robert Gore. Welcome to Groovin Radio, Doc.
Please, peace. Thanks for having me, Russ.
How you doing this morning?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited, trying to figure out what ideas I'm going to work on next before I get the day really started.
Okay. You know, Breadman, he is a doctor. He's a philanthropist. And he's now into movie production. I don't know what hat he's wearing this morning, but he's going to talk to us about the massive earthquake, what he have seen firsthand when he first went to Haiti. And recently, you were on a mission there. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I first started going to Haiti back in 2009. I got into it because my dad had been doing some work in the northeastern part of the country. He was actually doing a photo project. Right. And when he came back, that was probably around 2007, he says, you got to come to the country. And I had put off going down there for a while, partially because I was a little bit scared about what to expect. But even though deep down inside I wanted to check out the country. And then in 2008, around November or December, I started consulting for a nonprofit based in the northeastern part of the country called Bethlehem Ministry. And they were in the process of putting together a clinic to help provide care in an area that needed a lot of care. This is pre-earthquake. And then 2009 wound up going down to the country, and my life was definitely changed from that experience. I mean, I've been listening and hearing about Haiti for many years. As a matter of fact, my parents got me a comic book. It was called Golden Legacy. I don't know if you guys remember Golden Legacy, but Golden Legacy was Black History comic books, and they had stuff on all sorts of civil rights heroes, but one in particular was about Toussaint Louverture. So I've been hearing about him and the country and the revolution for many, many years, and to get down there and experience it was definitely a blessing. But what I saw down there, I mean, people think Haiti is, the first thing that comes to mind is devastation and poverty, but we actually saw opportunity, we saw growth, we saw communities coming together. Did they have the same resources that you might have in the Western, I guess in the developed countries? No, not necessarily. But we did see a lot of progress that was happening beforehand. But then fast forward to the earthquake, where you had massive devastation occurring in a short period of time in a country whose infrastructure wasn't necessarily the greatest. And we saw many people from around the world come together just to focus on rebuilding efforts. Now, building is a process. Rebuilding is even more extensive and time-consuming as the building from scratch. And so what we have in Haiti right now is this continuous process of rebuilding and restructuring, and many people both in the government and outside the government that are working towards creating a viable and sustainable country that is destined for major growth, not just survival. I mean, a mentor of mine, talked a lot about moving beyond survival mode, but to a mode that you can actually thrive in, and that's what we've been working towards. I'm fortunate to be a part of an organization called eMedics International, and eMedics focuses on emergency medicine training and care through education. Providing medical care is not a sustainable model. It costs a lot of money to send down a disaster team, or even when people do medical missions and they go down there and treat patients, that's pretty much a transient effect and doesn't really do anything for the infrastructure. But education stuff, that holds a lot more weight. Because when you leave the country, especially as an expatriate or a foreign doctor or someone who's representing an NGO or a non-governmental organization that's only going to be down there for a week or so, what's left? And so if you don't do anything that's going to provide a level of infrastructure development, especially, utilizing resources that you have, then you have the same situation that's been happening in the country for many years.
Right.
So I try to encourage a lot of people who do have an interest in global health and anything global where they go to another country and provide some sort of services. If there's no education and training that's being provided, then you have major issues as far as sustainability. And the goal is to become obsolete. Our goal is not to be in the same place at the same time every year, day in, day out.
Right.
Because if that's happening, no change has taken place.
Right. The key word in that whole thing there is the infrastructure, rebuilding that infrastructure. Let's paint a broad picture on this one, Breadman. It was a 7.0 magnitude quake that struck Port-au-Prince. Some 3.5 million people were affected by this. 220,000 people estimated to have died. And another 300,000+ people got hurt from this massive quake. And you heard the doctor mention infrastructure. Education is always the key. And if you educate these people, they will, they will start understanding and start moving forward. You can send stuff in. You can give them stuff. But if you don't educate them on how to use the stuff, if you don't educate them on how to spend the money, what you think will happen?
Exactly.
Being that you were down there from 2009 before the earthquake actually happened, I know they usually have a saying that hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
When you look back, what could have been different? What could have really helped that country if they were more prepared for that earthquake? What could have made them more prepared?
Oh, well, there are many things that I would do differently in hindsight, but I think one, having a positive perspective on growth and change before the earthquake was a huge thing, because we were already starting to look at education and training. So it was always in the back of our minds. But as far as just overall structure, that's something that unless you have different types of money and different types of resources, that would a lot of the changes as far as infrastructure, from building development. That's something that probably wouldn't have happened, because you're dealing with the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere that have been devoid of so many resources for such an extended period of time. There's probably no way possible, unless you're coming from an affluent family, then you're probably not going to be able to rebuild, your buildings from scratch. Because, when you look at a lot of the tenements and you look at the houses in Port-au-Prince region and other parts that were devastated by the quake, they were already kind of rickety to a certain extent. People just start building on top of things because that's the space that they have, and they were utilizing the materials that they had access to. And the key part is access. If you have access to higher quality materials, a higher quality education, or higher quality food, then certain things just don't happen. And I think what happened, with the earthquake is it awakened the rest of the world to realizing, okay, you have a population, you have a people who have been suffering for a long period of time, and now they need access. If you wind up, especially for the Caribbean, if you have a country that is, experiencing economic decline, then the rest of the Caribbean is affected by it. However, if you wind up having this jewel that continues to be polished and refurbished, then all the other, it makes everything else around that area look good.
Right.
And that's the positive experience that, I think the Caribbean actually wants to see. Nobody wants to have their neighbors in a state of decay. You want your neighbors to thrive. Same thing in our neighborhoods in New York.
Right.
Your property looks good. Your neighbor's property looks good. Then the overall property value tends to increase for your entire community. And I think what's happening right now is people are starting to realize that. But just throwing money at the situation is not going to fix the problem.
Right,
So again, the long-term rebuilding and realizing the rebuilding part is not sexy. It doesn't look good. It's tedious. It's time-consuming. And so that's why a lot of people don't get involved in this kind of stuff.
Doc, and ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Groovin Radio. It is indeed our community engagement segment, and we are talking with Dr. Robert Gore. He is indeed a medical doctor who have traveled many times over to earthquake-stricken Haiti. When you look at Haiti 5 years ago, and you look at it today, Robert, Just give me a quick oversight. When the quake, when you first got there, and you look at it today, recently, like when you just went down there, how is it looking?
I'm seeing a lot of changes. Areas that you had complete landslides of buildings in certain valley areas are now being rebuilt. I remember, this past trip, I got a chance to spend a little bit of time in Port-au-Prince, and that was my first time in Port-au-Prince, maybe in about 2 years. We would usually bypass and just go and fly to the northeastern part of the country. But I saw the tent communities had been done away with. We saw brand new buildings being built. We saw roads that had been restructured. The traffic had improved substantially, and even as far as Wi-Fi connection, you start thinking, how do you get in contact with people? It's it's a lot better connected Wi-Fi wise, and we're starting again. You start to see signs of a community that's been flourishing. You've got a new president that's been in place for a number of years right now with President Martelli. You've got other people from other aspects of government, and again, that are looking to try to contribute to making sure that you have a country that moves beyond this state of survival. But I am seeing major changes, both conversation-wise, but also just visually.
Well, Doc, how can we help? How can we help some more? Because oftentimes, we talk about these situations and people listen to these programs and they're sitting there wondering, what can we do? I know millions of dollars were given to Haiti in terms of to help to rebuild. And oftentimes we wonder, how was that money used? Is it being used correctly? But if someone is listening to us and want to do something there, how can they help? How can they contribute anything?
Okay. Well, it all depends. I like to tell people to contribute where you feel most comfortable. Because I'm in healthcare and in medicine, and then my specialty is emergency medicine, I'm looking more towards healthcare type programs and projects. If you have people who are involved in just regular general education, they're teachers, they're professors, you might look at other organizations that have been down there doing the grassroots work and see what best ways to support them. I don't think it's a general. You can just say, okay, this particular organization or that organization. I will talk about what we're doing with eMedics International, and we've been doing what's called a Train the Trainers program, where we've been teaching and working alongside Haitian physicians and medical professionals, teaching first aid and first response to help lay down the foundation for an emergency medical system. You've got traffic accidents, you've got so many other things going on, but people don't get to the hospital in an efficient way, and that tends to have an overall impact on their lives. And so we've been working alongside professionals, and it's been rebuilding. As a matter of fact, the last trip I took in September was the first time that the entire course that we have been a part of was completely run by Haitian physicians and other medical professionals.
Wow, good.
So again, being in the process of becoming obsolete. The organization that I work with is called eMedics International, EMEDEX International. And so, we're always looking for support there. But, this last trip that I went down there for, you mentioned before, we've been getting into films, and we actually shot our first documentary.
Yes, tell us about that.
So, my dad has been involved in television and media my entire life, and so I've grown up seeing a lot of this stuff. And then, just watching television, but you start thinking about what's a greater way that you can have a voice. And if people don't see you, they don't hear you, they can't touch what you're doing, then the projects and things that you tend to be working on don't necessarily have the right to flourish and to thrive. And some friends of mine, brother by the name of Mark Baptiste, who's a celebrity photographer, and from Haiti originally, and another brethren, Brian Deca-Paw, who's a filmmaker and graphic artist and visual artist. We all came together to form a project called the Global Empowerment Project, which is a docuseries that's looking at travel and philanthropy through community projects. And Haiti happened to be our first site because, we've had prior experience going down there with some of the members of our team, but we wanted to really push philanthropy in a completely different direction because everybody wants to give and they feel good when they do that, but not everyone knows how to go about doing that.
Right.
You asked before about what's the best way that people can contribute to make sure that there's this general overall growth and development that continues in Haiti. Part of it is just figuring out how do you fit in, what can you do within your own scope, but also how do you start to build in those resources. And so we talk a lot about that stuff with the first film that we've done. Our website isn't up, but if you type in Global Empowerment Project, if you go into Facebook, we have a Facebook site, and we'll be keeping people with up-to-date from the actual film project. We started with Haiti, but we're going to continue it in other countries as well.
Doc, when the project is done, I want you to come back and share it with us because we like those projects. We've been promoting a project called Aquantu The Journey. It is indeed a project about the Maroons out of Jamaica by Roy T. Anderson. And when you get a chance, you can Google Roy T. Anderson. He will join us next week. He just came back from Ghana, and he's working on a new project called Nanny the Story. So when you're finished with that project and it's completed, Breadman, we want to have front row seat so we can see.
Most definitely. It's funny you talk about the Maroon Project. My dad actually, he was down in Jamaica and he was shooting one of the Maroon festivals, and I was over by his house looking at some of the photos, and he has a photo exhibit coming up at the Interchurch Center next week. Right. On Thursday, January 22nd. This Thursday coming, January 22nd at the Interchurch Center.
You know what? I'm gonna call him later. I may have a conversation with him tomorrow, right here.
Yeah, I saw there's some stuff from the Maroon Festival and there's some stuff from the Rastafarian community in Jamaica. Looking at faith and spirituality. But you just brought that up. I was like, oh, shit, I got to give my dad a shout-out.
So we say good morning, Bob. Hope you're doing well this morning. Robert, it's nice talking to you, and we're going to continue our conversation right here. When your project is completed, we're going to bring you back. We're going to talk about the project, and we're going to continue to just lend our brothers and sisters down there in Haiti a loving hand, a giving hand, a kind hand. I thank you and your team. I thank you and the medics team that you work with for going down and doing what you have been doing for many years. It's just noble work. And that is why this morning in our community engagement segment, 5 years later, we took a quick look back on some of the stuff that's taking place down there in Haiti. In closing, Robert, what would you like to say?
In closing, I would just say, I don't want to just sound trite and say, keep hope alive, but that's what we really need to do. Just keep growing, keep thriving, keep trying to educate yourself about the issues that are at hand, but most importantly, start looking at solutions to figure out how you can fit in this entire process. There are a lot of other community groups that are here in New York City that are Haitian, that do tremendous work, and part of it is really starting to identify them. But just keep at it. The rebuilding process takes years. It's not a 2-month process. This is 10, 15, 25 years. I look at what happened in Rwanda, post-genocide, and look at it right now. It took some time for that stuff to happen. And now Rwanda has been a major example of the entire continent. But again, this rebuilding stuff takes at least 20, 30 years. And this is with diligent work. This is not a month here or a good year there. This is constant, continuous growth and development, But again, I try to tell everyone, think about how you can eventually become obsolete with the growth and development as far as the resources that you're putting in. If you're not planning an exit strategy, then you're not going to have the long-term effects that you are actually desiring.
Well, there is a level of human kindness that I know your dad grew you up with, and you're showing it today. Dr. Robert Gore, I want to say thank you. Continue on the journey that you're on, sir. And we will indeed engage you again in another thought-provoking conversation one of these morning right here on Groovin Radio. Take care, sir. We will talk.
Okay, definitely. Take care.
Take care, Robert. That was indeed our community engagement segment. Dr. Robert Gore. And